we might just be living through the Nicolas Cage renaissance, and I'm here for it.
Have you been dreaming about me?
Have I been dreaming about you?
Yeah.
Dream Scenario is an A24 film from the up-and-coming director Kristoffer Borgli, who is relatively unknown. He broke out on the indie film circuit with his film last year, Sick of Myself, which was quite acclaimed, although it didn't reach a super wide audience. He's been a director of music videos and commercials for quite some time, and his talent is finally being recognized and being put onto a larger platform. Obviously, Dream Scenario stars the well-known, the polarizing at times, Nicolas Cage. Cage has been honestly killing it for the last couple years. He really broke out kind of back into critical acclaim in 2021's Pig, which was one of my favorite films of that year. He then followed it up with the meta self-deprecating film, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which followed a slightly fictionalized version of himself. And he's back in 2023 with Dream Scenario. Obviously, Nick Cage is one of the most memed actors to ever live, but the respect that he's received has certainly been mixed, and honestly, for pretty just reasons. He's been in many, many films that have not worked out, and his performances sometimes have been quite over the top and not really rooted in much human emotion. In Dream Scenario, it's another solid performance for Cage. I didn't love this one as much as I loved Pig and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, but he's still making creative choices here that are certainly helping his kind of renaissance, this new direction that he's decided to take. Dream Scenario as a film is quite interesting. From the opening credits and the initial scene, we're kind of put into this surrealist world, which is engaging for the viewer and makes us want to know what is going to happen next. That being said, for the entirety of the film, there are tremendous tonal shifts. It's not always taking this kind of surrealist view, both visually but also thematically. It weaves in elements of family drama, at times comedy of different forms. It even leans into some horror tropes at times, which is not entirely surprising given that Ari Aster was one of the main producers on this film, but it can't quite decide what it is. Is it a black comedy? Is it a drama? Is it a dramedy? Is it a horror? Is it an artistic surrealist picture? It doesn't quite settle on any one. And for some, that might be great. You get a little bit of everything. But for me, it ended up coming across as a little bit disjointed. This can be said for the plot as well. We have this obviously central kind of plot that we're exploring. Nicolas Cage's character is appearing in everyone's dreams. Why is that? What kind of is the response here? But then there's kind of some other plot points that we veer into at times. We have an exploration of kind of sexual fantasy with Gelula, and to no fault of her own, of course, her character really ends up coming across as kind of one-dimensional, at least in terms of the purpose that she serves in the film. It seems as though she really is only there as kind of a sexual object for the viewer and also Nicolas Cage. And it would have been great if she was given some more depth, because her performance was great given the context of her role. Within that kind of dynamic that we have with her character and Nicolas Cage's character, we have potential moments of romance and sex disrupted by farts, which sure can elicit a chuckle, but felt a little bit cheap. We also had some small plot points centering on influencer culture, which obviously ties into like the broader theme that we'll discuss. But again, some of the laughs felt a little bit cheap here. Obviously, we understand what influencer culture is in our world, and the film was quite clearly taking jabs at this, but not really saying anything new about it. So when it comes to theme, there are some pretty clear messages that this film is delivering. It addresses this seemingly human desire in the modern age to seek fame almost at any cost. We see so many people doing essentially anything for fame in this new digital era, and so the film dissects that and shows the viewer, again, as we already know, that fame is not something necessarily that we should be striving for as our ultimate desire. Within that, it explores the impact of capitalism and media and the effect that that can have on potentially creating this artificial desire for fame or notoriety. It also acknowledges that within this system, we frequently have individuals or large corporations profiting off the vulnerable, using potential that they see in terms of revenue generation to use vulnerable individuals to aid in that goal. But again, this thematic exploration is all fine and dandy, but the film itself doesn't really add anything new to the narrative that we aren't already aware of, and it skirts around these themes and never really addresses one in a kind of complex, nuanced, deep level. There's so much comedy that it kind of makes it seem as though these thematic implications aren't actually that important. That being said, I enjoyed the kind of visual palette that this film offered. The cinematographer, Benjamin Loeb, worked on a couple films in recent years that I quite liked to varying levels. Pieces of a Woman and After Yang, which was actually one of my favorite films of that year. And he was most effective when really building on the surrealist aspects of the film. His use of color and light pretty effectively created this dream world that a lot of the film is exploring. When it comes to performances, obviously we're talking about Nick Cage here, and he was really good. He perfectly portrayed this desperate, kind of pathetic man at times who is really just seeking the adulation and acknowledgement of others. He has these dreams of writing a book, but he hasn't even written a word, and he almost seems that he just wants to be given these things. And Nick Cage, based on the character that he would have been given on paper, executes this pretty flawlessly. He's funny, he is bewildered, he is longing, and that comes across quite clearly to the audience. Beyond that, there were some good performances from Julianne Nicholson, Tim Meadows, and Michael Cera. Julianne Nicholson, probably provided the strongest performance here as Nicolas Cage's wife in the film, and she being kind of the only person in his life that is really able to ground him. She is kind of the only person that can maybe bring him back from these fantasies that he has. Tim Meadows was great, although he wasn't given too much to do on screen. And Michael Cera was good, although it felt very much like a this is Michael Cera moment whenever he appeared on the screen, almost as if a way to get audiences to buy in to the film. And look, it might seem like I didn't like this movie at all, but I enjoyed it for the most part, and honestly, it had the potential to be a film that I loved. The first act was really building towards something cool, I felt, but then it veered in a few different directions that kind of lost me. That being said, the final scene I thought was brilliant. We have an absolutely perfect needle drop to lead us into credits from the Talking Heads, which was referenced, this group was referenced throughout the film. Perhaps intentionally, given that this was an A24 film and they just released a new version of Talking Head concert footage this year, but that certainly did work for me. So, in the end, why should you watch this film? Obviously, if you're a Nick Cage fan, this is a must watch. He's been putting forward some really strong performances, and he was quite good in this one. Also, if you like the idea of multiple different genres, weaving different tones together, then this could be for you. Why maybe not to watch this film? Similar to that last point, if you are a person that kind of looks towards a clear and coherent tone or genre, then this one probably isn't for you. I would still give this one 3 out of 5 stars, and it's gonna be in theaters for a little bit here, so check it out if you want. If you made it this far, do the subscribe thing, the like thing, the comment thing, all those things. Watch the next one, and yeah, thanks. Cheers.